stability in Sudan. South Africa would like to make a clarion call to all those who have been involved in these efforts to continue to stand shoulder to shoulder with the people of South Sudan as they embark on a journey of state building, as well as the solidarity with the people of Republic of Sudan as they deal with the new reality created by the emergence of a new neighbor. In this regard, South Africa welcomes the resolution adopted last week by this Council establishing a new United Nations mission in South Sudan. We are particularly pleased with the integrated nature of this new mission, with a focus on peace building and support for development based on the principle of ownership. The mission will play a significant role in supporting the new state in laying a foundation for sustainable development. Mr. President, for our part, South Africa will continue to assist with the means at our disposal in building on the technical capacity building programs of the past 5 years. The sister peoples of both South Sudan and the Republic of Sudan can continue to count on our support to help build and consolidate lasting peace and stability in that part of the continent. Together with our IPSA partners, India and Brazil, we have committed to mobilize our own resources to support development projects both in the North and South Sudan through the IPSA Poverty Alleviation Fund. In conclusion, Mr. President, we are of the firm view that the resolution of the conflict in the Sudan will contribute a great deal to the comprehensive resolution of all the conflicts on the African continent. In this regard, we salute the outstanding work of the African High-Level Implementation Panel led by our former President, Thabo Mbeki. We also pay tribute to one of our own compatriot, the Special Representative of the Secretary General, Haile Menkerios, for the exceptional manner in which he discharged his duties. We are grateful to the women and men who served in the UN mission to Sudan since its deployment. In spite of the harsh and challenging conditions under which they served, they dedicated themselves to the noble cause for peace, stability, and at times making the ultimate sacrifice. To the people of South Sudan, your time indeed has come. It is now your turn, and I thank you.
I thank Minister Rabide for his statement, and I give the floor to Her Excellency, Ms. Susan Rice, Permanent Representative of the United States of America and a member of President Obama's cabinet.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last Saturday, I had the great honor of heading the U.S. delegation to Juba to celebrate South Sudan's independence. It was a deeply moving day. After half a century of war, at a cost of more than 2 million lives, the Republic of South Sudan can now finally determine its own future. The United States salutes the courage and the sacrifice of the people of South Sudan, who never abandoned hope. After so many years of bitter conflict, South Sudan's independence occurred peacefully and democratically through referendum, a heartening way for the world's newest nation to be born. Vice President Machar, welcome, and congratulations to the people of the Republic of South Sudan. We're delighted that you're here to represent your new government at this meeting where the Security Council unanimously recommended that your country be admitted as the United Nations' 193rd member state. Ambassador Osman, we also commend the government of Sudan's decision to be the first country to recognize South Sudan's independence. We welcome all efforts to forge a relationship between Sudan and South Sudan that is rooted in mutual respect and cooperation, a relationship that strengthens the viability, security, and prosperity of both states. By continuing on the path of peace, the government of Sudan can redefine its relationship with the international community and secure a brighter future for its people. Mr. President, the Security Council remains fully engaged in helping both countries towards their shared goals of peace and stability. On July 8th, this Council unanimously authorized a new UN peacekeeping mission in the Republic of South Sudan. UNMISS will assist the government as it builds a new nation, including on issues of peace building, development, security, and protection. But as we all know, this moment of promise is also fragile and fraught. Sudan and South Sudan must work hard to secure an enduring peace and two viable states coexisting as peaceful neighbors. It is vital that both countries work with the African Union High-Level Implementation Panel to swiftly resolve all outstanding issues. The parties need to finalize arrangements on the border, citizenship, oil, and other issues if they are to forge an enduring peace. A permanent resolution of Abiyai's status remains elusive. Despite an agreement on temporary security arrangements and the imminent deployment of a UN interim security force, the situation in Abyei is still extremely volatile. An estimated 100,000 people remain displaced from their homes. Meanwhile, brutal fighting between the Sudanese armed forces and the troops of the Sudanese People's Liberation Army North has displaced more than 70,000 people in southern Kordofan. The Sudanese army is continuing and intensifying aerial bombardments that are killing civilians. On June 28th, the government of Sudan and the SPLM North agreed to a framework of political and security principles for southern Kordofan and Blue Nile states. But the government of Sudan's commitment to this agreement has wavered. Both parties need to agree immediately to a cessation of hostilities. The violence, the human rights abuses, and the deliberate obstruction of access for humanitarian agencies must end. Given the ongoing hostilities and abuses in southern Kordofan and the vulnerability of neighboring Blue Nile, we deeply regret the government of Sudan's decision to compel the United Nations departure from these two states. The United Nations should be allowed to maintain a presence in these areas to help distribute humanitarian aid, protect civilians, and implement any cessation of hostilities agreement. Mr. President, the challenges are great, but they are by no means insurmountable. The Security Council has done its utmost to support this process, and this Council and my government will remain deeply engaged in supporting the Republic of South Sudan at this critical juncture and into the future. My own country's history has taught us that it takes moral courage to attain freedom and make freedom's promise real for all citizens. And we've learned that this work is never done. We have great faith in the people of South Sudan. We expect they will create a government that works for the good of all people and for the stability of the region, and thereby create a country that strengthens this community of sovereign nations. As I said in Juba on Saturday, a nation born from conflict need not live in conflict. In this spirit, and with great hope for the future of the world's newest nation, the United States wholeheartedly supports South Sudan's application for membership in the United Nations. Congratulations, and we look forward to welcoming you. Thank you, Mr. President.
And I thank Her Excellency Ms. Rice for her statement, and I give the floor to His Excellency Mr. David Douillet, Secretary of the State of Foreign Affairs of France.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, Mesdames et Messieurs, le Conseil de sécurité vit aujourd'hui un moment historique. Nous avons recommandé l'admission aux Nations Unies d'un nouvel État membre, son 193e État membre. L'indépendance du Soudan du Sud est un événement majeur dans l'histoire de l'Afrique. Elle marque la conclusion heureuse de 50 années de guerre qui ont durement meurtri toutes les populations du Soudan et ont fait des millions de morts. C'est un formidable espoir de paix pour tous qui montre que la négociation et le dialogue sont plus efficaces que les armes et l'affrontement militaire. Cette nouvelle naissance d'un État en Afrique est la première depuis les décolonisations. Elle est un succès pour le peuple soudanais tout entier et bien sûr pour le peuple du Soudan du Sud qui a voté en janvier de façon unanime pour l'indépendance. C'est aussi un succès pour le gouvernement du Nord et du Sud qui, malgré les difficultés, ont mis en œuvre l'accord de paix global de 2005. Enfin, c'est un soulagement pour la communauté internationale qui a appuyé ce processus sans relâche et voit dans cet événement la possibilité d'un nouveau départ. Je dois souligner à cet égard la contribution remarquable du président Mbeki et du représentant spécial du secrétaire général des Nations Unies, M. Menkarios. La France s'est elle aussi beaucoup investie dans ces efforts. Elle a soutenu le processus de Nevacha, qui a conduit à la signature de l'accord global de paix en 2005. Elle a voté les différentes résolutions qui ont accompagné sa mise en œuvre. Elle n'a jamais cessé le dialogue, ni avec le Nord, ni avec le Sud, notamment quand les discussions entre les partenaires de l'accord de paix se trouvaient ralenties. Elle a reconnu le nouvel État, en même temps que l'Union africaine et l'ensemble des États membres de l'Union européenne, et établi des relations diplomatiques avec lui dès le 9 juillet. La France se tient aux côtés du Soudan du Sud pour assurer l'intégration du nouvel État dans le concert des nations, au sein des Nations Unies, comme dans son environnement régional ou les instances financières multilatérales. De nombreux défis restent à relever pour permettre au Soudan du Sud, comme au Soudan, de se développer et d'établir des relations harmonieuses. Les deux pays doivent achever les négociations restantes, tout en assurant avec les autorités sud-soudanaises la protection des civils. La MINUS aura ce rôle d'accompagnement de l'État sud-soudanais dans la prise en charge de ses responsabilités. Nous soutenons pleinement Mme Johnson dans cette mission. Au nord, certaines régions restent source d'inquiétude, comme les États du Kordofan méridional et du Nil bleu, pour lesquels nous espérons que le Soudan acceptera une présence de la communauté internationale. Au sud, il faudra mener à bien la réconciliation nationale et assurer la sécurité de tous les habitants. Passer d'une logique centralisée, héritée des années de guerre, au fonctionnement pluraliste d'une démocratie. Construire les infrastructures et les institutions qui permettront à sa population de sortir de la pauvreté. Des conflits qui aujourd'hui encore se règlent en prenant les armes devront s'exprimer pacifiquement à travers les organes démocratiques. Il faudra pour cela former des cadres, préparer les générations futures à la gestion de l'État, mettre en place des institutions solides. La lutte contre l'impunité, au Soudan comme au Soudan du Sud, sera essentielle pour pacifier les relations entre citoyens, mais aussi entre citoyens et autorités. La France est décidée à appuyer le nouvel État pour l'aider dans cette entreprise, en mettant en œuvre l'ensemble de ses instruments de coopération, en coordination avec l'Union européenne et ses principaux partenaires. Nous sommes heureux, très heureux d'accueillir aujourd'hui le Soudan du Sud dans la communauté des nations. C'est l'aboutissement d'une longue lutte, mais aussi le début d'un chemin sur lequel la communauté internationale et la France continueront de prodiguer leur soutien. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
And I thank Secretary Doyer for his statement. I give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Mikhail Bogdanov, Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation.
Уважаемый господин председатель, прежде всего разрешите поздравить его превосходительство вице-президента господина Рика Машара и в его лице народ Южного Судана с провозглашением независимости и созданием самостоятельного и суверенного государства. В отношении государственного статуса Южного Судана Россия неизменно придерживалась принципиальной позиции. Задолго до проведения референдума мы заявили, что поддержим суверенную волю южно-суданского народа. В таком сложном вопросе Россия не оказывала давления ни на одну из сторон, исходя из убеждения, что судьбу страны всегда должен решать сам ее народ. Российская Федерация заявляет о признании нового государства Республики Южный Судан. Суданским сторонам удалось в целом мирно и цивилизованно подойти к разделению некогда крупнейшего государства Африки. Руководство Судана и Южного Судана неизменно проявляло политическую волю к разрешению порой весьма критических противоречий, возникавших между ними на трудном пути реализации всеобъемлющего мирного соглашения. В результате большинство задач, содержащихся в данном соглашении, было успешно ими выполнено. Главные вызовы в контексте становления южносуданской государственности мы видим в сохраняющихся нерегулярных вопросах в отношениях между Хартумом и Джубой, багаж которых весьма велик. Самостоятельное значение имеет острая проблема статуса района Абьей. Теперь эти вопросы выходят на межгосударственный уровень. Рассчитываем, что в новых исторических условиях руководство двух стран вновь окажется на высоте своей ответственности за судьбу и благополучие народов своих стран и придет к окончательному решению спорных вопросов политическими методами через переговорный процесс. Достигнутые договоренности по урегулированию ситуации в Абьей, в штатах Голубой Нил и Южный Кордофан призваны закрепить наметившуюся позитивную динамику. В этих целях необходимо продолжение посреднических усилий Африканского союза. Потребуется усиленное международное содействие становлению государственности Южного Судана в целях создания эффективных институтов государственного управления, противодействия растущим внутренним угрозам и вызовам безопасности, решения экономических и социальных проблем, формирования надлежащего режима соблюдения прав человека. Важная роль в содействии обеспечению стабильности в Южном Судане будет принадлежать учрежденной Советом Безопасности миссии ООН. При этом мы, разумеется, исходим из основной ответственности правительства Южного Судана за укрепление мира в стране, ее продвижение по пути миростроительства. Одновременно призываем подумать и о дополнительных экономических стимулах для Республики Судан, учитывая, что раздел страны всегда проходит весьма болезненно и сопровождается рядом новых внутренних проблем. Знаем мы об этом на собственном историческом опыте. Со своей стороны, Россия намерена углублять российско-суданское сотрудничество во всех областях, укреплять сложившуюся конструктивную и доброжелательную атмосферу в наших отношениях. Обретение Южным Суданом государственного суверенитета открывает дорогу к развитию российско-южно-суданских отношений на основе принципов равноправного диалога и уважения суверенитета этой страны. Исходим из того, что подлинное деловое партнерство между нашими странами будет являться одним из важных факторов упрочения стабильности и безопасности на африканском континенте. Готовы установить дипломатические отношения с Республикой Южный Судан. Рассчитываем в самое ближайшее время провести предметные переговоры на этот счет. В заключение хотели бы выразить уверенность в том, что успешное выстраивание руководством Южного Судана добрососедских отношений с Республикой Судан и другими африканскими государствами будет отвечать интересам поддержания и укрепления мира в Центральной и Восточной Африке. Россия заинтересована в общей нормализации обстановки в этом регионе, который пережил период затяжных конфликтов и постепенно встает на путь стабилизации. На это нацелены усилия руководства России и российской дипломатии. Благодарю вас, господин президент. Председатель.
I thank Minister Bogdanov for his statement, and I give the floor now to His Excellency Mr. Henry Bellingham, MP, Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Foreign and Commonwealth Affairs of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
Thank you, Mr. President, for calling this important debate. I'd also like to congratulate Germany for the exemplary way you have presided over the Security Council during this month. I'd also like to thank Under-Secretary General Leroy for his statement and for the tireless work of the United Nations in support of peace for all Sudan. I'd also like to thank Vice President Makar and Ambassador Osman for their statements, in which they reaffirmed their commitment to good relations between their two countries, whose futures are so closely intertwined. I was especially impressed, Your Excellency, by your remarks when you said a moment ago, links are as strong as ever between North and South, as we are all Sudanese. The birth of South Sudan on the 9th of July was a historic event for both the newly born state and for the Republic of Sudan. With colleagues from around the world, the UK Foreign Secretary William Hague was present in Juba to share this joyous occasion. As President, as witness to the CPA in 2005, the UK bore witness to the statesmanship that brought an end to 50 years of bitter civil war. Since then, we have all, as members of this council, witnessed the leadership shown by both parties, which delivered a peaceful referendum on the future of South Sudan, and which has brought us to this momentous meeting today. The UK and the UN stand ready to assist the new state of South Sudan in delivering security and prosperity for the people. We recognise that needs are great and time short to make a real difference in the lives of those who have waited so long to realise the hope of a better life. Mr. President, the establishment of a new UN mission in South Sudan, which will work with a wider UN family and the international community to support the government of South Sudan, is an indication of our collective commitment to the South Sudanese people. The UK remains equally committed to assisting the government of Sudan in delivering security and prosperity for its people, including for our engagement on Sudanese national debt and our support for UN peacekeeping and development assistance to Sudan. But even as we recognise the extraordinary achievement that Sudan and South Sudan have made in separating peacefully, many issues of vital importance to their people remain unresolved, including citizenship, wealth and oil sharing, and border demarcation. As other speakers have suggested and stressed, these must be resolved without delay, and I therefore welcome the commitment of both governments to pursue negotiations urgently with the support of the AU High-Level Implementation Panel under the excellent leadership of former President Mbeki. In this context, I also welcome the intention of the UN to provide advice to the Security Council on the implementation of the parties' 29th of June agreement on management of the border and on the role of the UN mission in Abyei. As we meet to celebrate the friendship between South Sudan and Sudan, I'm particularly concerned, Mr. President, for the people of Abyei and South Kordofan, who continue to suffer the agony of conflict and displacement. In Abyei, as a number of other speakers have made clear, over 113,000 people have been displaced. With the rain setting in, it's vital that the Abyei Interim Agreement, supported by the forthcoming deployment of the UN Interim Security Force for Abyei, is implemented in full and without delay, so those displaced can return home. In South Kordofan, the continued fighting and the hindering of humanitarian assistance to populations in need is completely unacceptable. The UK is also deeply concerned by reports of ongoing violations of human rights and international humanitarian law in this continuing conflict, reportedly including aerial bombardment, extrajudicial killings, forced displacement, arbitrary arrest, and detention. We unreservedly condemn this ongoing violence and call on the government of Sudan and the SPLM North to agree an immediate ceasefire. We further urge the government of Sudan to grant immediate full humanitarian access throughout South Kordofan and reiterate our concern at withdrawal of the UN mission in Sudan, whose mandate to protect civilians and assure humanitarian access is sadly needed more than ever before at this time. Mr. President, in both Abyei and Southern Kordofan, the parties must work urgently to find lasting solutions which put the interests of local populations at their heart. In Darfur, too, a comprehensive peace agreement is urgently needed. We remain deeply troubled by the deteriorating security and humanitarian situation and urge all parties to cease fire immediately and to work to create the necessary conditions for peace to succeed. Mr. President, the challenges facing both Sudan and South Sudan are immense. But on the other hand, the opportunities for cooperation to transform the lives of all Sudanese are equally great, as you pointed out, Your Excellency, Mr. Ambassador. It remains the goal of this Council, which has engaged so assiduously in support of peace during the past year, to support both Sudan and South Sudan in achieving stability and prosperity as two peaceful, economically successful states living side by side in friendship. The primary responsibility for the future of their peoples lies with them. We therefore urge both governments to show now the leadership that delivered both the CPA and the historic events of last Saturday. In closing, Mr. President, I would like to congratulate Vice President Makar on this Council's recommendation that the General Assembly should welcome South Sudan as its newest member of the UN. They're to work in partnership with Sudan and all members to uphold those key UN values and principles, including peace, tolerance, rule of law, transparency and accountability. Mr. President, I'm confident that South Sudan will uphold these values and thus with pride take up its place in the world community. Thank you.
I thank Under Secretary of State Bellingham MP for his statement, and I give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Luis Brits Pereira, Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs of Portugal.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. On behalf of Portugal, I would like to start by saluting the independence of the Republic of South Sudan and welcoming this new country to our community of independent states. I am particularly pleased to greet here today His Excellency's Vice President Riek Machar Tenny de Grand and Ambassador Dafar Ala Osma. The Portuguese people have a special affinity with Africa forged by centuries of shared history. Witnessing the arrival of the new South Sudan on the world stage as an independent nation is undoubtedly a special moment for us, marking the beginning of a new phase in our relationship with both the Republic of South Sudan and the Republic of Sudan. Portugal looks forward to continuing working with both in building a peaceful and prosperous future for the two countries, and indeed for Africa in general. Portugal was represented at the independence ceremonies in Juba by Ambassador António Monteiro, former Portuguese Minister of Foreign Affairs and member of the United Nations Secretary General's panel for the monitoring of the referendum held last January. In Juba, Ambassador Monteiro conveyed a letter from the President of the Portuguese Republic to the President of the Republic of South Sudan, expressing wishes for peace, stability, and the development of the new state. I would like to also take this opportunity to recall that Portugal has always already recognized the Republic of South Sudan as an independent and sovereign state, as have the other European Union member states. Portugal is now looking forward to establishing diplomatic relations with the Republic of South Sudan. We also welcome the recognition of the new country by the Republic of Sudan and by the members of the African Union. Let me also commend the Sudanese people for their peaceful determination and for the orderly way in which they expressed their will. The referendum was a milestone, not only in terms of the implementation of the 2005 Comprehensive Peace Agreement, but also in terms of underlining the Sudanese people's attachment to a peaceful solution to their differences. Allow me yet to voice our sincere appreciation for all the work and efforts of the Secretary General, his special representatives, Haile Menkeros, as well as the African Union High-Level Implementation Panel and its President-Chair, President Thabo Mbeki, the work they have undertaken and that have led to the birth of the new country. We are also deeply grateful to the leaders and peacekeepers of the UN mission to Sudan for their invaluable assistance throughout the entire process, their dedication and commitment. Mr. President, the independence of the Republic of South Sudan is but a step, albeit an important one. But in order to fulfill the expectation that it entails, the challenge that still remains must be addressed in an urgent and comprehensive way. That is why we encourage President Bashir and President Salva Kiir to grasp this opportunity and to spare no effort in solving all the outstanding issues between their two countries. As we have repeatedly stated, dialogue and political commitment at the highest level are what is needed in order to ensure that this historic moment becomes a moment of lasting progress. We are thus encouraged by the July 4th meeting between the two presidents at the extraordinary session of the Intergovernmental Authority on the Development of Sudan in Addis Ababa, and their commitment to continue negotiations after the 9th of July. In this regard, Portugal welcomes the recent progress parties made on interim agreements for Abyei and security arrangements for the border zone between the north and south. Negotiations on other issues have also continued. But we must underline that finding an agreement on the final status of Abyei and reaching common understanding on key issues such as citizenship, management of the oil resources, and border management are essential to ensure a peaceful future and a mutually beneficial relationship between the two states and their viability. We gave our support to the establishment of the United Nations Interim Security Force for Abyei, and we share the view that North and South would benefit from the United Nations assistance concerning the border. We also urge the two leaders to make full use of the good offices of the African Union High-Level Implementation Panel under the leadership of President Mbeki. Mr. President, unfortunately, the encouraging progress in several areas that I have just mentioned has yet to be reflected in southern Kordofan. Like all members of the Council, Portugal has been deeply concerned by the ongoing fighting in that state, causing an alarming and increasing number of displaced persons. We condemn the lack of access for humanitarian agencies, and we urge all parties to grant them full and unconditional access. We also call on the two sides to follow through on the political and security framework agreement negotiated by the National Congress Party and the Sudan's People Liberation Movement North to find a quick solution to this situation and to put an immediate end to the hostilities. Mr. President, peace and hope should be extensive to all Sudanese, including those in Darfur. I therefore reiterate Portugal's commitment to working towards improving the lives of all Darfuris. Mr. President, to conclude, let me underline again that the continuing commitment, engagement, and spirit of close cooperation of both governments will be necessary to achieve a peaceful and prosperous future for North and South alike. Likewise, the international community should continue to provide the support and encouragement that the two states will need in the still difficult times ahead. For the immediate future, the United Nations will remain in South Sudan, and the mandate for the new United Nations mission in the Republic of South Sudan has been adopted by the UN Security Council. In the same way that we have supported and strongly encouraged this presence in the South, we will continue to support all efforts that the Republic of Sudan believes may contribute to making this new chapter equally successful for its people. Finally, let me express my best wishes to the future 193rd member of the UN General Assembly. I also hope that the new future will bring peace, stability, and prosperity to all the peoples in the region. Indeed, this is the only outcome that will justly honor their past suffering and struggle while meeting their expectations and aspirations regarding the future. I thank you, Mr. President.
And I thank Minister Pereira for his statement. And now I give the floor to the representative of Gabon, please.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Ministre. Monsieur le Président, je voudrais à mon tour me féliciter de la proclamation d'indépendance de la République du Soudan du Sud, intervenue le 9 juillet dernier. Le Gabon se réjouit d'avoir participé au plus haut niveau de l'État, notamment par la présence de son Excellence M. Ali Bongo Ondimba, à la cérémonie marquant cet historique événement. Nous avons également reconnu officiellement le nouvel État du Sud-Soudan. Je salue la présence parmi nous du vice-président de la République du Soudan du Sud et du représentant du Soudan auprès des Nations Unies et les remercie de leurs déclarations respectives. Monsieur le Président, l'indépendance du Soudan du Sud parachève la mise en œuvre de l'accord de paix global, socle du processus de paix au Soudan. et devrait mettre fin à des longues décennies d'un conflit tragique qui a occasionné de millions de morts et entraîné un déplacement massif de population. Dans cette longue et laborieuse quête de la paix et de la stabilité au Soudan, la communauté internationale a fait montre d'une grande unité et d'une détermination résolue. Le Conseil de sécurité a joué un rôle central dans cette mobilisation internationale pour une solution durable à la crise soudanaise. Il faut associer à cet aboutissement la volonté des parties au conflit à s'engager par un dialogue franc et constructif à la recherche d'une solution politique négociée au conflit. Cette volonté politique a été confirmée récemment par la signature de l'accord sur Abyei suite aux violences intervenues dans cette région. Le Gabon, qui a toujours prôné le dialogue et la concertation politique comme des valeurs fondatrices de sa diplomatie, se félicite de ces avancées qui concourent à la paix et à la stabilité dans cette immense région d'Afrique. Ma délégation voudrait particulièrement saluer l'engagement politique et le leadership du président Béchir et du président Salva Kiir, qui auront été essentiels à la mise en œuvre de l'accord global de paix. Nous saluons également les Nations Unies, l'Union africaine et la communauté internationale tout entière pour la mobilisation et les constants efforts en faveur de la paix au Soudan. Monsieur le Président, les défis de construction et d'édification auxquels le nouvel État va faire face sont immenses. Le Soudan du Sud a presque tout à mettre en place. La réforme du secteur de sécurité, la mise en place d'institutions démocratiques, l'instauration d'un État de droit ainsi que le respect des droits de l'homme. À cela s'ajoute le développement économique du pays, la fourniture des services sociaux de base aux populations et la bonne gestion des ressources naturelles. À cet effet, la création de la mission des Nations Unies en République du Soudan du Sud, MINUS, établie conformément à la résolution 1996 de 2011 du Conseil de sécurité, est un outil fondamental du processus de construction du nouvel État. En effet, cette nouvelle mission aura pour rôle d'aider ce pays à consolider la paix et la sécurité, ainsi qu'à créer un environnement économique stable. Monsieur le Président, l'euphorie de la naissance de la République du Soudan du Sud ne doit pas nous faire oublier que plusieurs questions restent en suspens. En effet, les deux parties ne sont pas encore accordées sur les arrangements post-sécession. La démarcation de la frontière qui sépare les deux États, la question de la citoyenneté, le partage des richesses sont des questions cruciales qui doivent être résolues. Les relations de bon voisinage et la cohabitation pacifique entre les deux pays sont à ce prix. La question du statut final de la région d'Abyei ainsi que la persistance des combats au Kordofan méridional constituent une autre source de préoccupation. Toutefois, le Gabon se félicite notamment des négociations qui ont eu lieu à Addis Abeba entre le gouvernement du Soudan et le mouvement populaire de libération du Soudan, qui ont permis la mise en place d'un accord cadre sur le partenariat politique entre les deux parties et l'établissement des arrangements politiques et sécuritaires dans les États du Nil bleu et du Kordofan méridional. Nous exhortons les deux parties à poursuivre leurs efforts dans le but de parvenir à des solutions finales sur toutes ces questions pendantes. Monsieur le Président, dans ces efforts, comme dans l'œuvre de construction du nouvel État, notre appui à tous ne devrait pas faillir. Pour sa part, le Gabon s'apprête à nouer des relations diplomatiques avec la République du Soudan du Sud. Je vous remercie.
I thank the representative of Gabon for his statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of India.
Thank you, Mr. President. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Vice President Dr. Makar and other members of his delegation to the Council on this historic occasion. I also wish to welcome the honorable ministers from Brazil, Bosnia-Herzegovina, South Africa, Germany, France, Portugal, the Russian Federation, the United Kingdom to the Security Council. Their presence in our midst today underlines the importance we all attach to this occasion. I would also like to thank the Under-Secretary General, Mr. Leroy, and my distinguished colleague, the Permanent Representative of the Sudan, His Excellency, Mr. Ali Osman, for their comprehensive statements. Mr. President, 64 years ago, India's first Prime Minister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, had declared, and I quote, "At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom. A moment comes, which comes but rarely in history, when we step out from the old to the new, when an age ends and when the soul of a nation, long suppressed, finds utterance," unquote. Today is one such moment of a tryst being kept with destiny, when, after a long struggle, the voice of the people of South Sudan has found expression. Let me at the outset convey the Government of India's warm welcome to the new state of South Sudan, born on 9 July this year, after a peaceful and transparent referendum where the people of South Sudan voted to form a new state. Our Vice President, His Excellency Mr. Hamid Ansari, participated in the joyous celebrations in Juba on 9 July. Mr. President, the Government of India commends the leadership of both the Sudan and South Sudan, who have shown exemplary patience and maturity to see the fulfillment of this important CPA landmark, which India had supported from its very beginning in 2005. We therefore convey our congratulations to both the parties for successfully marching to this day. India and Sudan share the most cordial of relations. We are deeply committed to the development and to the peace and prosperity of Sudan. It is in this context that India welcomes the developments of the past year in which the Sudan, which have brought peace closer to this troubled land. In particular, we welcome the emergence of South Sudan as a new state and the newest member, the 193rd member of the United Nations international community. As a member of the Security Council, it has been our great pleasure to be associated with the adoption of a resolution today that will lead to the General Assembly accepting the Council's recommendation on South Sudan's application for UN membership. We look forward to South Sudan joining the United Nations as a full-fledged member tomorrow. Mr. President, India and Sudan have deep-rooted ties. For over 100 years, people of Indian origin have made Sudan their home. Nearly 10,000 persons of Indian origin live in Khartoum, Omdurman, Wad Madani, and Port Sudan. The economic interaction between the two countries is substantial, and our two-way trade is around US $1 billion per annum. This is among the largest with the countries of Africa. India was one of the first Asian countries to open a consulate in Juba. This will soon be upgraded to an embassy. We look forward to the continued growth and diversification of these relations as the two Sudans chart their independent destinies. There have recently been exchanges of high-level visits from both sides. These interactions have facilitated substantial exchange of views for chartering the course of action and future roadmap for intensifying our relations with both Khartoum and Juba. For India, the two entities of Sudan, taken together, remain a major force and partner in Africa. The recent India-Africa Forum Summit in Addis Ababa testifies to our commitment to working together with our African friends for the collective development of Africa. Mr. President, India was witness to the Nivasha Agreement of January 2005, establishing the Comprehensive Peace Agreement. We have watched the progress made in its implementation with keen interest and are happy to see an important CPA landmark achieved with South Sudan's independence. We are sure that outstanding CPA issues like the status of Abiy, etc., will also be dealt with by both sides in the same spirit of cooperation and mutual accommodation. In this regard, we deeply appreciate the work done by the Special Representative of the Secretary General, Mr. Menkerios, in overseeing the implementation of the CPA and in maintaining peace in the region. We are happy to note that the agreement between both sides to demilitarize Abiy, which demonstrates the will of the two sides to jointly move ahead towards a negotiated settlement. In keeping with this spirit of seeing a peaceful and prosperous region, we also support all ongoing efforts at achieving peace in Sudan, including the Darfur issue. We would like this issue to be resolved soon. Our appreciation is due to the State of Qatar and the African Union High-Level Implementation Panel on Sudan, led by Mr. Thabo Mbeki, who has played a very significant role in this regard. India has been one of the largest troop contributors to the United Nations mission in Sudan, in addition to the notable contribution of Indian police officers to both UNMISS and the government of Sudan. We have recently pledged $5 million for development assistance to South Sudan, as also other capacity building projects under our Aid to Africa and IFS2 program. Sudan is a major beneficiary under India's technical and economic cooperation program. To continue our engagement with South Sudan under this program, 75 additional seats have recently been announced for South Sudan. The Pan-Africa e-Network project undertaken by India in Africa has been a huge success. We are considering to extend the entire package of Pan-Africa e-Network, including its telemedicine and tele-education components, to South Sudan. As already indicated by the Honorable Foreign Minister of Brazil, India also intends to work alongside with Brazil and South Africa on part of the IPSA group and within the IPSA fund for projects that benefit the peoples of both North and South Sudan. Mr. President, we recognize that the Sudan and South Sudan will face enormous challenges in the years ahead as they chart their independent destinies. For its part, India is ready to assist this process, both on a bilateral basis and on the basis of its rapidly growing interaction with Africa. On behalf of the government and the people of India, may I once again congratulate the leadership of both the Sudan and South Sudan for their statesmanship, their commitment to peace, and to the welfare of their peoples. India stands ready to extend all possible assistance in their path to progress and prosperity. Thank you.
I thank the representative of India for his statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of China.
谢谢主席先生。主席先生，我感谢德国倡议召开今天的会议。我欢迎南苏丹共和国副总统马夏尔阁下出席今天的会议，并感谢他的发言。我也要感谢潘金威秘书长、雷罗伊副秘书长、苏丹常驻代表奥斯曼大使刚才所做的发言。主席先生，7月9日，南苏丹共和国正式宣告成立。中国政府和人民对此表示热烈祝贺。当前的进展来之不易。为了推动苏丹南北和平进程，执行全面和平协议，苏丹和南苏丹领导人和两国人民体现出了非凡的智慧、勇气和坚韧不拔的意志。 南苏丹共和国的诞生是苏丹南方人民的共同意愿和自主选择，这是苏丹和平进程的重大成果，有利于实现地区的持久和平与稳定，具有重要的历史意义。主席先生，中国同南苏丹人民有着深厚的传统友谊，我们都有加强友好交往的共同愿望。南苏丹共和国成立当天，中国国家主席胡锦涛致电南苏丹共和国总统吉尔表示祝贺。中国已与南苏丹共和国正式建立外交关系，开启了两国关系的新篇章。中方将在和平共处五项原则基础上，同南苏丹共和国建立和发展长期健康稳定的友好合作关系。中国支持南苏丹加入联合国，我们期待着南苏丹成为联合国第193个会员国的历史性时刻，期待着同南苏丹在联合国框架下全面加强合作。我们衷心祝愿年轻的南苏丹共和国在国家建设和发展的道路上不断取得新的成就，成为维护和平稳定、促进共同发展的积极力量。中方将继续为南苏丹的发展提供力所能及的帮助。南苏丹建国伊始，百废待兴。我们呼吁国际社会继续为南苏丹实现政治稳定提供支持，为南苏丹的经济恢复和发展提供切实的援助。我们支持联合国驻南苏丹特派团根据安理会的授权，加强同南苏丹政府的沟通与合作，为维护南苏丹和平稳定、推动发展作出贡献。主席先生，苏丹和南苏丹都站在新的历史起点上。苏丹与南苏丹有着共同的历史，经济文化紧密相连，两国的和平与发展息息相关。两国继续坚持包容和互谅互让的精神，加强合作，是实现和平相处、共同发展的唯一选择。我们希望两国继续以和平大局和两国人民福祉为重，通过对话和谈判，妥善解决全面和平协议未决问题。中方欢迎非盟继续就苏丹和南苏丹未决问题展开斡旋，支持穆贝基先生领导的非盟高级别执行小组为此发挥重要作用。苏丹政府体现出了推动北南和平进程的政治诚意，并为此做出了巨大努力。国际社会同苏丹的关系应尽快实现全面正常化，使苏丹人民尽早享有和平、尊严与发展。我们衷心希望苏丹和南苏丹两国在国际社会的帮助和支持下，永远做好邻居、好伙伴、好兄弟。谢谢主席先生。
I thank the representative of China for his statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Nigeria greatly appreciates the special attention that you have devoted to Sudan today. The contribution of your country to the Sudanese process are well recognized, as is your personal commitment. I would like to welcome the participation of the Vice President of the Republic of South Sudan, Mr. Riek Machar Teni Dogon, and to thank him for his inspiring comments. I would also welcome my colleague, Ambassador Usman, and thank him for his statement. The Secretary General has been unrelenting in his quest for peace, and so has been the USG Leroy in his unremitting efforts in waging the peace. Allow me, on behalf of the Federal Government of Nigeria, to congratulate President Salva Kiir and the people of the Republic of South Sudan on finally achieving statehood. Our President, President Goodluck Jonathan, shared this historic moment with the people of South Sudan in Juba and conveyed Nigeria's solidarity and unflinching support as the country begins the arduous process of nation building. Let me also commend the leadership of Sudan in promptly recognizing South Sudan's independence. The President and the people of Sudan have demonstrated courage and steadfast commitment to the implementation of the CPA. We believe that this is an inspiring lesson in international responsibility and peacemaking. Mr. President, on the 9th of July, the international community joyfully welcomed the historic birth of Africa's newest state, South Sudan, following a protracted struggle. For the newborn state, we must acknowledge inherent challenges, lists of which are insecurity, institution building, infrastructure and economic development, political and social cohesion, the integration of returnees, meeting international obligations, and forging a strong and lasting partnership with neighbors, especially Sudan. Without doubt, the primary responsibility for setting priorities and identifying strategies for addressing these post-conflict state-building challenges lies with the government of the South Sudan. Thus, the signing of a new interim constitution, the granting of amnesty to former armed fighters, the move to diversify the economy from oil dependency, and the emphasis on unity based on cultural and ethnic diversity are necessary steps in the right direction. The new Republic of South Sudan will not only require the support of its immediate neighbor, Sudan, but also the international community. A peaceful, stable, equitable, and mutually beneficial relationship between Sudan and South Sudan is critical to internal peace and regional stability. We therefore welcome recent statements by both President Kiir and President al-Bashir, reaffirming their commitment to resolving all the remaining issues of the CPA and bringing peace to the troubled areas of Abyei, South Kordofan, and Blue Nile, as well as Darfur. This commitment should not only serve as the bedrock of the future relationship between the two countries, it should